Joining us now is John Singleton, the author of The Meaning of Mount St. Mary's, who took it upon himself to learn the history of his alma mater.
Wow.
And develop a deep love for Our Lady along the way.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I was talking to John before this, so it's great to have you on the show now, John. How you doing?
Delighted to be on Catholic TV, and I take surveys as often as possible on Catholic TV.
Oh, good
Well, there
for
you go. So when you do, make sure you say, like, this is the day.
Yes, and I'll do it. Yeah, every day this week I'm going to do it.
Unless you don't like it, and then don't check that square.
No, still check it. Oh, yeah, still check it. John, first, a lot of people may not know that Mount St. Mary University in Maryland is home to the National Shrine Grotto of Our Lady of Lourdes. Tell us about the history of that.
The National Shrine Grotto gets about 500,000 visitors per year, and its history is really that of a cave. So if you think of many great things in the past, you have Christ was born in the cave, you have Plato's Parable of the Cave, you have Homer's Cave of the Immortals, you have King David taking refuge in a cave. A cave is the beginning of many great things, and a cave is where Catholic education got its start in the United States. Mount St. Mary's is the first Catholic college in the 50 states, the first named for the Mother of God in the United States, and actually the first college named for a woman in the United States.
That's really interesting. And another thing that I didn't know is that the university also has a connection to Blessed Stanley, who is, as many of us know, well on his way to sainthood. What's that connection?
So Stanley Rother is the first American-born martyr. He went to our seminary. Elizabeth Ann Seton is the first American-born saint who was tutored by Mount priests and lived on the campus. So Mount St. Mary's is really the home to the first two American-born saints/martyrs. And Stanley Rother's story, of course, is such an interesting one because he was, he is very much a man's man, and when he ended up meeting his martyrdom, it was in a fist fight. I mean, it was in a fight to the death with a couple of assassins who had come into his compound in Guatemala, where he was taking care of a whole village of people, and had gotten on the wrong side of the authorities there, and ended up defending them. And as the shepherd, he gave up his life for his sheep, and it's a really great story.
I'm beginning to see now why you had the inspiration to write the book.
Yes, a lot of great material at Mount St. Mary's, and most of it is unknown.
And what are some of the lesser-known biblical roots of Mary, like in Genesis and Revelation?
So the part of the Mary story that really intrigued me from when I was a student was that I'd wake up every morning, look up on the hill, on the mountain, at this beautiful gold statue of a woman. What I didn't notice was Mary is standing on the head of a snake, and she's pregnant. So this is a very unusual image and underexplored, right? We know Mary by the manger so well. We know Mary at the foot of the cross. But Mary as a dragon slayer, it is very underexplored. And because I think it's a little bit intimidating, this is a woman who is taking action. She is displaying certainly feminine characteristics, as she does by the manger and at the foot of the cross. But now she's taking on this dynamic persona where she's actually doing battle with a dragon. And that has intimidated and I think created some enemies of Mary over the years throughout history who have tried to, I'm going to say, remove her from her rightful place as a dragon slayer in the mythology and the theology of the Catholic Church.
And we don't think of this often because we say the name of the state so quickly, Maryland. But
Maryland.
It's really named after Mary, the Mother of God. It's Maryland, right?
Yes, it's Mary's land. It was named that by the British when they were purging their Catholic population, way back in the 1600s. And then once the settlers got here, the colonists got here, there was sort of a bait and switch, and they said, no, that's actually named for Queen Marietta Henrietta, some British royalty. But the Catholics who moved here, which were many, they named their capital city St. Mary's City. They named their river St. Mary's River, their county St. Mary's County, as in Mary, the Mother of God, the Queen of Saints, not a British royal. So again, history sort of gets shifted on us if we're not careful, particularly Catholic history.
Okay, two-part question. What have your personal encounters with the Blessed Mother been like, and how did they impact your relationship with Jesus?
Well, as I went through history, I realized that Mary had encountered some very powerful enemies. One of them was King James of England, who started out as King James VI of Scotland, who sort of stood aside as his mother, Mary, Queen of Scots, was beheaded. Then he was actually placed into the throne. His mother had gotten on the wrong side of the British royals, and she had been the son had then made to replace her. And then what King James quickly did was he started prosecuting witch trials in Catholic towns throughout Scotland. Then he was basically promoted to become King James I of England. He wrote a book on demonology that justified what he was doing in the countryside, really going after his political critics, maybe his religious critics, because he himself was not Catholic. And then he did witch trials in Pendle, England, again in a Catholic town, mostly with Catholic women. So when it came time to commission the King James Bible, you can see why he removed the "she shall crush the serpent's head" and turned it into "it" or "they." It became a pronoun controversy. And therefore, the King James Bible, unlike the Catholic Bible, the Douay-Rheims or the Vulgate, obscures that relationship between Mary in Genesis and Mary in Revelation. And so therefore, understanding that really deepened my understanding of Mary, her son, right, who she's saving so that he can save the world from the dragon in Revelation, referred back to in Genesis. It's a beautiful biblical symmetry, and it filled out my faith really well as a Catholic.
Well, John, you've really piqued our interest on the real meaning of Mount St. Mary's. So I'm sure people are curious too who are watching on TV. Where can people get a copy of the book?
So the book is available in the bookstore at Mount St. Mary's on the website. It's it's a coffee table book. It's full of pictures, stories. I would even call some of them fables. The Mount has heroes that are bigger than life, Mary being the first and foremost. But then, of course, Father John Dubois, who established the school and founded it in that cave that we talked about at the beginning. He stepped into a cave and found Marian inspiration to name a school for the Mother of God. Elizabeth Seton, Stanley Rother, and many others.
John, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for sharing all of that with us. Have a great day.
Thank you.